Hello, everyone. We are putting out our little more detailed update of Thanksgiving, which we put. I think it's been a couple weeks now since we did the newsletter update that you received in the emails and/or mail. But we had Chris's 50th, not Chris's 50th, her parents' 50th anniversary. So things were pretty busy. We had to go to Ohio, a bunch of stuff going on. So we're just now getting able to put this video together and tell you some of the stories and things that were going on. But one thing right away that you may have noticed from Thanksgiving from the newsletter is that we had 20 more people here in our house this year than we did last year. Just space wise, that was something that first comes to mind is just how, especially at the end of the night, how busy it was because it was over the course of, 13 hours or so. So it was like 10 a.m. I think the first person came, and then 11:45 this year was the last person left. So it was actually really late compared to last year too.
Yeah, so last year we had 30 people, and then we sent a lot of the extra meals that we had home with them to their roommates. And this year we had 50, and we still had plenty of food to send home with their roommates. So it grew a little bit. It was fun.
Yeah, I don't even know how many we actually fed. I know last year we counted it. We counted up to 60. This year I don't know how many we fed, but in terms of the roommates getting the meals, but I know we had 50 in our house. So yeah, it was fun. It was busy. The difference in last year versus this year as far as the food. Last year we did the Bob Evans meals where you can actually get a full Thanksgiving meal and you can put it in the refrigerator and all of that, and then you just heat it up. Well, there are a few problems this year. One of them being that the church that we used to store most of those meals, we only had so much room in our refrigerator. We needed to store those meals somewhere else. We had a church that we did that. Well, that church sold that building, so we no longer had access to those two refrigerators. So that's one big problem. But the other problem was just that was the biggest problem. But it was solved pretty easily because my parents from Ohio were able to come down and spend those few days leading up to and then Thanksgiving Day with us and everything. So my mom was able to do all the cooking and all of that stuff. I don't know how she did that, but she was able to do it
on her feet all day long.
Yeah. I guess that's physically how she did it, but I mean, even to try to replicate it, I don't know. Maybe you could do it. I couldn't do it.
And they're not coming next year, so if any supporters want to come down next year and lead the cooking, then that'd be great because we aren't able to do that at the same time as spending time with people. It's too much.
Yeah. So that's my initial thing that comes to mind is okay, off the bat, those statistics, those like how it was done. But what comes to your mind first and foremost as far as Thanksgiving, I guess?
The big difference in people that we had last year versus this year. First of all, I cannot remember a single person who came again, though people had heard about it. So I don't think we had any duplicates at all. But this year, we had a lot of people who are here long term, which is really exciting to me because then we get to continue to meet them. And through 6 months, like past 6 months, typically we know people for 6 months and then they take off. But this is a little different. We get to keep in contact with them.
That's true, and some of you know more about Disney or you just know because of us, but one thing about last year versus this year, the difference in, well, why didn't anybody come back? They didn't like it or whatever. It's not that. If you remember last year, we had a lot of Brazilians. It was their first time, and those international students, they're here for sometimes like 6 months, and then they go home to their home countries. They only have a certain visa. So all those Brazilians, they are gone. The two that stayed at our house, they're back home, but we still hear from her and have some stories we can share in future newsletters about things she shared with us.
And hopefully we'll be back sometime.
Yeah. That's always, they hope to come back as well. But then you also have, of course, last year, a lot of college students. We had just started I started working at Disney only a few months before that. And so we didn't know very well anybody. We were just starting to build relationships because it's only been a few months. Now, a year and a half in, there was a lot of people from Magic Kingdom Outdoor Vending who, like Carissa said, are here long term and have come to our house for board game nights. They came for Thanksgiving. They came for the ODV cookout we did.
And it was so fun to know that we could say, hey, see you at Thanksgiving. Can you bring any friends? And then they were excited to come too. Well, what's going on with
Oh, it was just a screensaver. It made it confusing. I was like, oh no, I hope it didn't shut down.
So we could look forward to it with them. It was just more family even than last year. Just more of a family feeling.
Yeah. So that's I think really good because we can follow up. I mean, we had the before, we've already had the after because after Thanksgiving we had a board game night, and after Thanksgiving we've had some people actually asked us if they could come over and watch Christmas movies in pajamas and everything.
That was fun. Don't forget to talk about these.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get to that yet. This is gonna be a 17-minute video tonight.
I don't want to make it too long.
So people want to hear the story. They can X out if they don't like it. So I did mention in the video or in the newsletter that we had these mugs set up for anxieties and Thanksgiving. So you could write down what you're thankful for, what you're worried about. So we did have a big response on those. And we told people that we will pray for these like in the coming months and all of that. So for example, we had somebody who wrote, and most of them were anonymous, but somebody who wrote in anxieties, whatever my future holds worries me. I don't want to have a stagnant or redundant life. And there were many deep ones that were written. I think I shared in the newsletter the one about the brother who her brother had committed suicide, and just things that wouldn't really come up normally if you're just sitting around the table at Thanksgiving. People wouldn't just say, oh, let me tell you this. I'm worrying about having a stagnant life or something. But anonymously, especially, they're willing to write that down. And it just goes to show, again, cast members, that you have seen at Walt Disney World or you've heard stories. These are people who have all of these troubles and problems like anyone else in the world, except there's the show key, and we have to cover that up. So, but yeah, these are definitely, we're going to definitely do that again in the future, put those out, because that was a very good response.
The show key?
Yeah, the show key, if you're not familiar, just basically everything we do, we're on stage. So you don't have to be in the Mickey costume or on a literal stage doing a dance. If I'm selling popcorn, I'm considered on stage. So I need to be smiling, I need to be friendly, which is great for guest services perspective. It's great when you're going there, you feel really good that everybody's in such a good mood. But it's part of the show. It's part of the thing that people put on. It's not real. We all know that in the real world. Nobody's that excited, that happy. So it is sometimes real, but many times for a lot of people who have no hope and peace, it's also not real. So I guess one thing I was going to follow up with from earlier, just to say, is we had a lot of people who we knew, but also some people we never met before who just heard about it because of the postings about Thanksgiving, who showed up. And there were very, very varied groups. So we had a Muslim came, and we said, hey, make sure that you don't eat this because that's the ham. Everything else is good. We had an LGBTQ couple that came. We had a bunch of different people, and one woman that came who works the barbershop on Main Street. She actually sat down with me at the table and came over to me and said, oh, so you were a pastor. And so she wanted to know about what that was, if I still am today, all of this. So talked to her a little bit about that. And then followed up with all these very deep questions where I didn't even have to bring it up. She just wanted to talk about and ask what I thought about this and what I believed about that. And then shared a lot of her story in and out of the church. And so what's really... In the
midst of everybody playing video games.
Yeah, everybody else had moved on to play video games. This was probably 9:30 at night then.
Really cool time.
Yeah, so it was really good, and as far as follow-up, we already mentioned, ODV continues that deeper relationships because I'm working with them almost every day, and we see them come for board game nights and that. But for people like her, the person I just mentioned, she said, hey, I want to come over and do one of these types of nights where we're going to discuss deeper things. So in January, we will start our own. In addition to the board game nights and the gatherings, we're going to do God Conversations, which we've been a part of with our friends Stephen and Lucia before. over at their house, but we're going to start our own groups, two right now, and we want to intentionally keep them small. And what that looks like is maybe you have 4 or 5 people there at max, and then you have a question of the evening, which could be, it's usually something very simple like, what do you think happens after you die? And of course, we would share the Christian perspective. So that is shared, the gospel is shared in that sense, but in a different way from a Bible study or a sermon, in that other people gathered there. There might be an atheist who comes, there might be a Muslim that comes, and those people are allowed to share their opinions as well, their beliefs. And we don't stop them and say, no, here's where you're wrong because Allah, we don't get into that because this is a kind of secondary level. We have board game nights. Hey, it's just all fun. We're not going to talk about the Bible unless someone brings it up. Then we have this secondary level where it's like, let's everybody discuss their own points of view, and we don't need to correct that. We can ask questions or, come back with a follow-up or, a little challenge maybe. But they could do the same to us and back and forth in a conversation in a safe setting. And then of course we have the third and final piece, which is people who are Christians, who are, those church plant groups that are going to be, doing the intensive Bible studies and those types of things, the worship nights. But all that to say that, this is, we're excited about this, and hopefully with the Disney schedules, we can have the people who are interested are able to come and be a part of it. So.
And I think the coolest thing to me about that is how we learned about God Conversations and the format to do this in a group setting way before we met this individual that we're talking about, who came to Thanksgiving. We didn't know her, and she sat down and said, "Hey, so you're a pastor, this is interesting to me," and began an hour-long conversation that ended with, "Boy, I'd really love to talk to you more about this. When can we talk more about Jesus and all of the deep, unending questions that I have?" And God just orchestrated that and put everything together so that we can start this in the new year.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of exciting stuff that happened on Thanksgiving, and then kind of the puzzle pieces to next year. So, I don't know, is anything else big? And again, you don't want to make it too long, but I guess anything else?
I like to ask some fun questions that people might be thinking of, like, what was the hardest thing about Thanksgiving?
The hardest thing? I guess my parents helped a lot, so we had 4 of us helping in terms of the cleanup. You think, you got to clean all that up, put all the food away. It really wasn't that bad because we all worked together. I guess it was the hardest part was just recovering over the next few days because, we had that until 11:45. We all went to bed, but then of course we have Eliza and Ellie, 2 and 7, who Eliza wakes up. They basically wake up most of the time, same time every day. So it's like, okay, get up at 7 a.m., and we're exhausted. So I guess that was the hardest part.
Yeah, one thing I always tell everyone is that we just kind of take December off, which is one of the reasons why this video is so much later than we expected to make it. Because, not that it's completely off all of December, but we take it for our family to relax and enjoy the holiday. Since the first holiday, Thanksgiving, we really pour into people as long as we can all day long. For me, that particular day, the hardest thing is to remember things, the details of people's lives. That's what I'm doing all day long as I'm talking to people one-on-one. I'm like, okay, so they have a sister and they live here and this is where they're from and they've been here for 6 months. To remember all that is crazy because everyone has a very similar story, but just a little bit different. They're from a different place. They've been here a different length of time. So that's the hardest for me. So I guess if you think about that next year, you can remember to pray for our memories as we remember those details, because they mean a lot to people when you remember their name, the next day and you when you see them in the park or something like that.
Yeah. Is that everything you have?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure before I say, because as a wrapping up piece or whatever, but everybody may watch this at different times, and maybe you'll watch this in the new year after it dies down. It is December 22nd right now, so it's obviously crazy time for everybody, but if you happen to see this in the next few days, we are hosting a Christmas Eve candlelight service that's very, very different. It's starting at Epcot and ends at our house with carols and all that sort of a thing. So with some cast members, so you can be praying about that. That's kind of the next big thing that we have before then. Again, in January 9th will be the first God Conversations at our house. So you can be praying about all those things. And if you have any questions about Thanksgiving or anything at all, you guys can contact us and let us know.
Yeah, sounds good. As always, I do want to say thank you to all of our supporters. You are the reason that this ministry continues.
Yeah. Thanks.